Hey everyone, so today we're going to be looking at how to control an LED using a push button. This is tutorial 2 and we're going to be building upon tutorial 1, so if you haven't watched that, please go and check it out. For this project we're going to need the following components. If you don't already have them, I'll link them below in the description. Going over to the schematic, we can now see what we're going to be building today. The right hand side is the LED part of the circuit, and that was covered in tutorial 1. The left hand side of the circuit is the push button circuit, and that's what we'll be going through today and adding on. So as you can see, we start off with the 5V pin, then we have our push button, then the circuit branches off in two directions. One goes all the way to ground and the other comes into pin D10. In the first tutorial we learned how we could output a voltage, and today we're going to learn how we can read in a voltage. Moving over to actually building the circuit, as you can see this is our circuit from tutorial 1. If you haven't already gone over that, please do so now. As you can see, we're now going to start off by taking our positive lead out of the 5V socket of the Arduino Uno, and we're just going to connect that to any rail of our breadboard. From there, we're just going to add in our push button. Notice how the one end of the push button connects to that 5V wire that we've just put in. So now we're going to need our two 10k ohm resistors, and you're going to see that both resistors come out of the one end of the push button, but you'll see that both resistors should end in a different rail, and that's really important because next we're going to take a wire and we're going to connect one of those resistors to pin D10 of the Arduino, and the other resistor is going to be connected to ground, and I'm just going to connect that right over here instead of connecting it to the actual board. This won't make any difference. So if you've done all of that correctly, you can now go ahead and plug in your Arduino Uno to your computer, and let's head over to the programming part of the tutorial. Okay, so you can just go ahead and open up your part 1 of the button LED file, and just open that up there. So as you can see, we just assign our LED pins and button pins to pin 11 and 10 respectively, and then we're going to go and set up our code. So remember, in the last tutorial we learned how we can output a voltage with a pin, but this time we're going to learn how we can input a voltage into a pin and read that out. So we're going to read that out by going over to the digital read, using the digital read function, and if we put in our button pin as a parameter, it will either give us a high if a voltage is coming in, or low if no voltage is coming in. And then obviously with this bit of code we can see if it's high, then we're going to turn the LED on, and it's the exact opposite for this bit of code here. So if there's no voltage being read, aka the pin is not being pressed, then I don't want the LED to turn on. So you can go ahead and verify that and upload it, and that should look like this. So as you can see here, if I press the button, the LED should turn on, and when I release it, the LED should turn off. Now that's exactly what we expect. So as we press the button, a voltage is applied to pin 10, which is then read, and then our code tells pin 11 when the button is pressed and a voltage is applied to the pin, then the light should turn on. And similarly, if I'm not pressing the button, then there's no voltage across pin 10, and then the code tells the LED to not turn on and not output a voltage through pin 11. Now if you did that successfully, you can move on to part 2. This is going to do something slightly different using the exact same circuit. As you can see, a bit of the setup is the same, but now we've got this variable called a button state. This is going to either be a high or low, and this is going to be an internal parameter. This is going to be a virtual button that we've just created. And as I just said, it's either going to be high or low, and we can manipulate that as we go along. As you can see, the setup is the same here, but everything inside the loop is entirely different. So now we're going to say if the button is being pressed and the internal button is already on, then we're going to turn the internal button off, and what we're going to do in that bottom bit of code is we're actually going to write that internal button off onto the LED. So if that's low, then the LED is going to be low, and if it's high, then obviously the LED is going to be high. So basically what I'm saying here is that if the button's being pressed and the button's already low, then we're going to turn it on, And if the button's already pressed and the internal button's already on, then we're going to turn it off. Now you'll notice that I have these two while statements in my code here, and that's because circuits take a little bit of time to reach a steady state. The time it takes from having a high voltage to you releasing the button and going to a low voltage takes a certain amount of time, and we just put in that delay of 10 milliseconds just to account for that, and we just wait for the voltage at pin 10 just to reach a steady state. If we don't do that, then it can cause errors with our code, as it will read in values as it's going through that transition, and we just don't want that. So you can go ahead and verify that and upload that, and that output should look like this. So as you can see, if I press the button and release my finger, the LED will turn on. And then I will have to push the button again to turn it off. Now, that's a bit different from our last bit of code where we had to hold down the button in order for the LED to stay on, whereas this remembers what we've done and will then turn the LED on or off accordingly once we press the button. So in this example, it takes 2 pushes of the button to turn it on and off, where in the last bit of code, in code part 1, we would just have to do 1 press, which would turn it on, and then as we released it would turn it off. Now you'll notice if you hold down the button, nothing really happens, and that's exactly what we want. That's why we had those 2 while statements, because if we hold down the button, then it's going to keep reading in a whole lot of values, and that's just going to cause mayhem with our code. Thank you so much for watching this week's video, and let me know what you would like me to cover next. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Your comments are the only feedback I get, so I really appreciate it if you comment, tell me what you liked, didn't like, and I can hopefully make my videos better for you. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.